Testing. So this is a 7th grade math. The standard is 7.RP.A.2. The learning target is I can recognize and represent proportional relationships between two quantities. So with this definition, I want you to make sure you write this down in your notes. Define cross product. The product of the numerator of one fraction and the denominator of another. And I will explain that in this lesson. A second definition I would like you to write down is to define proportion. It is a statement that shows two ratios are equal. So we'll start with giving you an example of a proportion. So I wrote the word proportion over the box because the proportion represents the entire thing in the box. So I chose the ratio 6/10 to be equal to 9/15. So that fulfills two ratios as equal. And they are equal. This ratio is equal to this one, but how do I know that? So that is your challenge today, your learning target. So what you want to do is you want to write the ratio again, 6/10 without the division bar, and then 9/15. You don't need the division bar, because what you're trying to find out is what factor or what multiplier can be multiplied by 6 to get to 9. And if you remember with multiplication and division, your product can be used to divide a factor to find the other one. So 9 divided by 6 equals 1.5. So that's the multiplier you use, 1.5, to get from 6 to 9. Now, if you can use the same multiplier to get from 10 to 15, then you have proven that you have a proportion, that the two ratios are equal. Is it true that 10 times 1.5 equals 15? Yes, it's true. So the scale factor, also called multiplier. Multiplier, the scale factor is 1.5. So for a real world example, I wrote, I walk 6 miles in 2 hours. So the proportion you would set up would be 6 miles over 2 hours. And you want to set it equal to, ordinarily in problem solving, one of these would be blank. But in this case, I'm going to walk you through another example that's already been finished. And we'll prove again that 6 miles in 2 hours equals 3 miles in 1 hour. So because you may already know your multiplication and division facts, you probably realize that 6 divided by 2 equals 3. If not, you can take 6 and divide it by 3 to get your multiplier. So if we use the same multiplier, 2 divided by 2, and it's true that it equals 1, then our proportion is true. If you wanted to see an example of not a proportion, something like 6/2 equals 4/1, and you can test that by using not a multiplier, but a number that a divisor that would prove to you. So if you wanted to know, use the divisor 2. 2 divided by 2 equals 1. That's true. But 6 divided by 2 does not equal 4. So this equation is a lie. It's not a proportion. It's not an equation. The scale factor, or the divisor, is not the same for the numerator and denominator. Another method for solving proportional relationship problems is when you put a circle around the two extremes, which is the top left and the bottom right. Those digits are called the extreme digits. And the mean are bottom left and top right. And if you multiply these two factors, 15 times 6, you get 90. If you multiply 10 times 9, you get 90, and 90 equals 90. So if the extremes multiplied together is equal to the means multiplied together, they form a proportion. It's also called the butterfly method because they look like butterfly wings. If you use your imagination, creativity will help you see it, an easy method to memorize. It is also called cross multiplication, and I use that term because you are multiplying across the equal sign. So here's an example for you to sort of solve before we get to the solution. I wrote an example of a ratio 12 over 20 equals x over 30, and I'm asking you to find x. So step 1, find the cross product of 12 times 30 and 20 times x. Set them equal to each other. So we're creating a new equation. 12 times 30 equals 360. 20 times x is still 20x. Step 2, divide by 20 on both sides. Because of your properties of division, you're allowed to divide both sides of the equation by the same number and not change the value. So 20 divided by 20 is just the number 1, so you just have 1x. And 360 divided by 20 is 18. So the solution to x in this problem is x equals 18. And that concludes this lesson.